The station meridian floated in the darkness of space like a small jewel caught between the light of two distant suns. One sun belonged to human space, and the other belonged to the Crystalline Empire. The station was meant to be neutral ground, where two very different species could meet and learn about each other. Vexter stood at the viewport and looked out into the void. His body was made of crystalline structures that caught the light and broke it into many colors. His eyes were not like human eyes. They could see in many directions at once, and they could perceive colors that humans could never even imagine. He had lived for over 200 years, and he had fought in more battles than most humans could count. He was here on a special mission. The Crystalline Empire wanted to understand humans better. They wanted to know how such a primitive species had managed to survive in a galaxy full of dangers. Vexter had been chosen because he had studied human behavior for decades. He knew their languages. He knew their history. He knew why they fought. A human voice came from behind him. The woman had yellow hair and kind eyes. Her name was Captain Emma Whitfield, and she was the leader of the human group on the station. Emma came to stand beside Vexter at the viewport. She did not seem afraid, even though she was standing next to a being who looked so different from anything she had ever seen. Captain Emma said that Vexter must find the view beautiful or strange. Or perhaps both. Vexter said that he had traveled to many stations and seen many views, but there was something about this one that was different. He said he could feel the hope in this place, even though it was floating in the middle of nothing. Emma smiled and asked what he meant by hope. Vexter turned to look at her and said that hope was something he had never learned to understand in humans, but something he had learned to recognize. Emma invited Vexter to join a gathering in the Fayez common room that evening. She said that some of the other humans wanted to meet him and talk with him. Vexter said he would come. Major David Curtis was there when Emma and Vexter arrived at the gathering. David was the military commander, and he had a serious face and careful eyes that watched everything. He shook Vexter's hand, which was a human way of greeting. Vexter had learned this gesture also. Present were 7 other humans. They were soldiers and scientists and engineers. They all looked curious, but also a little nervous. None of them had spent much time around aliens, and Vexter was a very unusual-looking being. They sat in a circle in the gathering room, and Emma explained that Vexter had agreed to tell them about his observations of human behavior and warfare. David asked Vexter what he found most interesting about humans. Vexter paused for a moment. His crystalline face caught the light again, and it seemed to glow from within. He said that what interested him most was that humans were not logical in the way that other species were. He said that humans made choices based on emotions and feelings instead of pure calculation. David asked if that was a weakness. Vexter said that humans had always treated emotion as a weakness, but his own research suggested the opposite. The humans leaned forward and listened carefully. Vexter said that he had studied many human conflicts. He said that humans often won battles that by all logical calculations they should have lost. The reason they won was always the same. They won because they refused to surrender, even when surrender was the sensible thing to do. They won because they cared about people who were not related to them. They won because they were willing to die for something that was bigger than themselves. Emma asked Vexter if he could give them an example. Vexter said he could tell them about something that had happened 50 years before on a human colony called New Haven. He said that the colony was attacked by his own people. The Crystalline Empire had sent a large force to take control of the colony. The humans were outnumbered 10-1 by any measure. They should have been defeated in days. But something unexpected happened. David leaned back in his chair and said he wanted to hear the story. Vexter said he would tell them the story, but he wanted them to know something first. He wanted them to know that he had spent many years trying to understand why his own people lost. That battle, he had read the reports. He had studied the records. He had interviewed other soldiers who had been there, but he had never really understood until recently What he learned changed how he saw humans, and it might change how they saw themselves. Gathering room became very quiet. All the humans were waiting to hear what Vexter would say. Emma brought drinks for everyone, and they settled in to listen. Vexter said that the story he was about to tell them was the reason he had come to station. Meridian, he said that the Crystalline Empire wanted to know if humanity was a threat, and he had been sent to study them. He said that after hearing many stories and visiting human worlds and speaking with human soldiers, he had decided to share what he knew. Vexter said the story of New Haven was the first story that had made him question everything he had been taught about humans as a species. It was the story that had started him on a journey of understanding. It was a story about desperation and courage and the strange human ability to find strength when there seemed to be no strength left to find. David asked when the attack happened, and Vexter said it was exactly 53 years before this moment. He said that many of the soldiers who had fought in that battle were still alive. Some were on this very station. He said that perhaps one of them could confirm the details, but he wanted to tell them the story first from his own point of view as an observer and an alien trying to understand what had really happened. Emma said that they were ready to listen, and they wanted to hear everything. Vexter nodded his crystalline head, and the light caught his features and made them seem to shift and change. He looked out the viewport at the two distant suns and began to speak about a battle that had taught him to see humans not as primitive creatures to be conquered, but as something far more dangerous and far more precious than he had ever imagined. The other humans sat in the darkness of the gathering room with only the starlight coming through the viewport and listened as Vexter began his tale of human warfare and human courage and the strange and powerful thing called hope that lived in human hearts. Vexter stood and moved to the viewport. His crystalline form seemed to absorb the starlight and transform it into something else. He looked back at the humans and began to speak about New Haven. 53 years ago, the Crystalline Empire received reports of a human settlement on a planet in the outer region. The settlement was called New Haven, and it was built by colonists who wanted to build a new life far away from human space, wars, and politics. The colonists had spent 15 years building their homes and their farms and their schools. They had made gardens in the red soil, and they had dug wells for water. They had built a community. When the Crystalline Empire decided to expand into that region, they sent a military force to claim the planet. The force consisted of 200 soldiers and 5 large attack ships. The commanders believed that conquering the colony would take no more than 3 days. The humans had no military presence. The humans had only civilian security, forces and farmers and teachers and children. The colony was led by a human named Colonel Ryan Hayes. Ryan was not a career military officer. He was an engineer who had come to New Haven to build water systems and power systems. He had no formal military training, but he had something else. He had 30 years of experience in solving difficult problems, and he had deep love for the people he lived with. When the alarm came that alien ships were approaching, Ryan Hayes was in the agricultural sector with Captain Rebecca Foster. Rebecca was the head of the colony security force. She had only 70 security personnel, most of them young and inexperienced. They had some weapons, but nothing that could stop an advanced military force. Ryan and Rebecca gathered the colonists in the main underground shelter. The shelter was designed to protect people from solar radiation and extreme weather, but it had never been designed for war. Down in that shelter were 2,200 people, including 800 children. Rebecca told Ryan that they could not win a direct fight. Ryan said he knew that, but they did not need to win a direct fight. They only needed to survive long enough to make the attackers leave. Ryan walked through the colony with Rebecca and asked her questions about every building, about every water pipe, about every power line, about every supply storage room. He asked about the agricultural sector, where they grew food in enclosed hydroponic systems. He asked about the chemical storage, where they kept fertilizers and water treatment supplies. He asked about the communications equipment by The time the alien ships began their descent, Ryan Hayes had a plan. It was not a perfect plan. It was not even a good plan, but it was something. The first alien soldiers landed near the main settlement. They expected to meet resistance, but not much resistance. Instead, they found the colony had been abandoned, or so it seemed. The humans had hidden themselves underground and had sealed the main entrances with materials from the construction sector. Alien commander sent soldiers forward to investigate. The soldiers broke through the first sealed door and found themselves in a corridor blocked by a wall of black liquid. The liquid was toxic to their biology and had been created by mixing chemicals from the hydroponic system with water. Treatment compounds. Ryan Hayes had understood that alien biology was different from human biology. If humans could not breathe water, then perhaps aliens could not tolerate certain chemical combinations. The first wave of alien soldiers suffered casualties and pulled back over. The next 3 days, Ryan Hayes and Rebecca Foster launched a series of moves that confused and frustrated the alien force. They used the colony infrastructure as a weapon. Humans crawled through ventilation shafts and service tunnels to deliver supplies and information. They created false signals that made the aliens believe there were more human soldiers than actually existed. They used the colony broadcast system to transmit messages. The crucial moment came on the third day when the alien commander called for a final assault. The commander believed that the human resistance was nearly broken and that one more major attack would end the conflict. Rebecca Foster had predicted this moment. She had told Ryan that alien commanders thought in terms of linear progression. They believed that if one attack almost destroyed their enemy, then the next attack would finish the job. Rebecca had Ryan record a message. A human general who had fought alongside the colonists years before had trained them in basic communication protocols. Rebecca used those protocols to transmit a false message across all alien military channels. The message claimed that human reinforcements had arrived in space above New Haven. The message claimed that 5 human warships were in orbit and were preparing to launch an attack on the alien force. The message was a lie. There were no human warships anywhere near New Haven. But the alien commander did not know that and could not verify the information because human space was far away. The alien commander faced a difficult choice. He could risk losing his entire force to an enemy with superior numbers, or he could retreat and report to his leaders. The alien commander chose to retreat. The next morning, the alien ships lifted off the planet. They left behind no soldiers and took all their weapons and supplies. The colony of New Haven was saved. When Vexter finished the story, the humans in the gathering room were very quiet. David Curtis was the first to speak. He asked if Vexter felt anger about his people being defeated by a bluff, a trick based entirely on deception. Vexter said that he did not feel anger. He said that for many years he had felt anger, but that anger had prevented him from understanding what actually happened. He said the anger made him focus on the failure of the mission instead of the failure of logic. The alien force had been defeated not because the humans were stronger, and not because the humans had better weapons. The humans had won because they refused to accept the situation as it was presented to them. Emma asked what he meant. Vexter said that by every rational measure the humans should have surrendered. The humans were outnumbered. The humans had no military force. The humans had families and children who depended on them. If humans were rational creatures, they would have chosen surrender and life over resistance and possible death. But Ryan Hayes and Rebecca Foster had not made the rational choice. They had made the human choice. Vextar said that this was what disturbed him most about humans. They possessed something that could not be calculated. It was not just courage. It was not just stubbornness. It was the ability to believe in impossible outcomes and then to make those impossible outcomes become real. He said that his own people had learned to calculate probability and eliminate variables from equations. But humans seemed to operate outside those equations. Somehow, they found new variables that no computer had anticipated. David said it sounded like humans had won because they were desperate. Vexter said that desperation was part of it, but not all of it. He said that many creatures felt desperation, but only humans seemed to transform desperation into something constructive. He said that humans had the ability to turn their backs to a wall and then break through that wall using nothing but ingenuity and refusal to quit. Rebecca Turner, the human psychologist in the group, asked if Vexter thought this ability was rare among species. Vexter said that in all his years of study he had never encountered another species that possessed this quality. He said that this might be why the Crystalline Empire and other galactic powers had not tried to conquer human space directly. He said that perhaps on some level they recognized that humans could not be defeated in the way that other species could be defeated. Vexter waited before he told his second story. He looked at each human in the gathering room. He wanted to see their reactions. He wanted to understand their expressions. He had learned that humans communicated in many ways beyond just words. Their faces told stories. Their bodies told stories. Their eyes told stories. He said that the second story was different from the first story. It was not about tactics or strategy or large groups of people working together. It was about a single human child, and what that child was capable of when faced with an impossible situation. Emma asked if the story was from the same colony. Vexter said no. This story happened on a different colony called Harmony Station. The station orbited a planet with 3 moons, and the colonists had built a peaceful community of 7,000 people. The station was designed for research and agriculture and learning. There were many schools and many children. 23 years ago, Harmony Station came under attack. But this attack was different from the attack on New Haven. This attack came from rogue aliens, that is aliens, who had left the Galactic Council and formed their own faction. These aliens were more desperate and more violent than the soldiers of the Crystalline Empire. They attacked without warning, and they attacked without mercy. One of the security officers on Harmony Station was a human named Nicole Morrison. Nicole had a son who was 7 years old. His name was Peter Morrison. Peter was a small boy with brown hair and curious eyes. He loved to read, and he loved to build things with his hands. Nicole worked long hours at her job as a security officer, but she always made time for Peter. She would read to him before he went to sleep on the day of the attack. Nicole was on duty in the security sector. She heard the alarms, and she knew what they meant. She immediately thought of Peter. She made arrangements for him to go to the emergency shelter, that is a bunker designed to protect children and old people if there was ever an emergency. Nicole told Peter that he would be safe in the shelter and that she would come to get him when everything was okay. Peter asked his mother if she was afraid. Nicole said that she was not afraid because she had to protect the people on the station. She told Peter that bravery meant doing your job even when you were scared. Peter went to the shelter with the other children and old people. The shelter was deep underground and had thick walls and only one entrance. The shelter had food and water and medical supplies. It had space for 500 people, and on that day, it held 473 people. The adults in the shelter sealed the door and turned on the emergency lighting. For the first few hours, everything seemed stable. The children played quietly. The adults tried to keep everyone calm. The emergency broadcast system said that the security forces were handling the situation, but then something went wrong. The power went out in the shelter. The backup generators did not work. There was no light and no ventilation and no communication with the rest of the station. The oldest adult in the shelter was a man named George Harrison. He checked the water supplies, and he made a terrible discovery. The water system had been damaged in the attack. The water would last for maybe 2 more days, but people needed water to live, especially children and old people. Without water, everyone in the shelter would die within 4 or 5 days. George told the other adults what had happened. The adults became quiet and sad. One woman began to cry. Another man sat down and put his head in his hands. They knew that if they left the shelter, they would probably be killed or captured. They knew that if they stayed in the shelter, everyone would eventually die. Peter was sitting in a corner with a younger child named Maya. Maya was 5 years old, and she was frightened. Peter held her hand. Peter did not understand the adult conversation, but he understood that something was very wrong. He understood that his mother was not coming back soon. He understood that something bad was happening. Peter asked a young teacher named Susan what was wrong. Susan told Peter that the water system was broken and that they needed to get to the emergency water depot, but the depot was in the central facility where the fighting was happening. Peter asked Susan if someone had to go get the water. Susan said that yes, someone had to go, but that no adult could leave because they had to stay and protect the children. Peter sat quietly for a long time. Then he stood up and told Susan that he was going to go get the water. Susan said that Peter was only 7 years old and that it was too dangerous. Peter said that Susan was right, but he also said that they would all die without water, and he did not want to die, and he did not want Maya to die. He said that he was small and maybe he could move without being seen. Susan tried to stop Peter, but Peter would not listen. He moved toward the door, and George Harrison used his code to open it. Peter looked back at Susan and Maya, and then he left the shelter. Corridor outside was dark, except for emergency lighting. Peter moved carefully. He moved slowly. He tried to remember the maps of the station that his mother had shown him. He tried to remember where the central facility was. He tried to remember the route that would take him there. As Peter moved through the corridors, he heard sounds of fighting. He heard weapons firing, and he heard voices shouting. But the fighting seemed to be far away. Peter kept moving. He was very small and his heart was beating very fast. But he moved forward because he knew that Maya and all the other children needed water. 3 times Peter had to hide because aliens passed near him. 2 times he thought he was going to be found and captured. 1 time, an alien soldier looked directly at him, but the alien hesitated. The alien seemed confused by the sight of such a small human creature moving alone through the corridors. The alien did not fire, but Peter ran anyway. After 6 hours of moving through the corridors, Peter reached the central facility. The emergency water depot was there. It was a large storage tank with pumps and containers. Peter was injured. He had cut his hand on sharp metal. He had bruised his leg when he fell, but he was alive. He had made it. Peter started to fill the emergency containers with water. He worked as fast as his small hands could move. He did not think about how tired he was. He did not think about how scared he was. He thought only about Maya and Susan and George and all the children in the shelter. Suddenly he heard someone coming. Peter froze. The person who came through the door was an alien soldier. The soldier saw Peter, and for a moment nothing happened. The soldier had a weapon. The soldier was much larger and much stronger, but the soldier did not move. The alien looked at the small human child who was filling water containers. The alien looked at Peter's face. The alien lowered the weapon. The alien stepped aside and let Peter pass. Peter carried the containers of water back through the corridors. The alien watched him go and did not stop him. Peter never knew why the alien made that choice, but he understood that something in the alien had recognized something in him. Vexter finished this part of the story. The humans in the gathering room were very still. David Curtis asked why the alien had let Peter go. Vexter said that he did not know. He said that he had studied this event many times, and he had never understood the alien soldier's decision. He said that there was no tactical reason for it. There was no military reason for it. Vexter said that what fascinated him was that Peter Morrison, at 7 years old, possessed something that went beyond courage. It was something that made even an alien warrior pause. It was something that made the alien recognize that this small creature was doing something important, something that mattered more than war. Rebecca Turner asked what happened to Peter. Vexter said that Peter made it back to the shelter. He delivered the water. His mother Nicole found him later when the fighting ended. She held him and cried. Nicole later said that she had never been more proud and more terrified at the same moment. Vexter said that this was the moment that began to change his understanding of humans. He said that humans protected their young in ways that defied logic. He said that humans would do impossible things for their children. He said that this protection and this love was not weakness. It was a strength that no military force could overcome. Emma asked if Vexter believed that this was what made humans truly dangerous. Vexter said yes. He said that humans would never surrender their young. He said that humans would never choose safety for themselves over safety for their children. He said that this was why the Galactic Council feared humans, not because of weapons, but because of love. The gathering room was quiet after the story of Peter Morrison. The humans seemed to be thinking about what it meant to be a parent, what it meant to have children, what it meant to make impossible choices. Vexter observed them carefully. He was trying to understand the emotional weight that human stories carried. After a long silence, Vexter said that his third story was different. It was not about military victory, and it was not about human children, though children would play a role. In the story, it was about human choice and what that choice revealed about human nature. It was about a man named James Lucas David. Curtis said he had heard of James Lucas. He said that Lucas was a famous diplomat. James Lucas had negotiated treaties with many different species. He had worked for the human government for 40 years. Vexter said that this was correct. He said that James Lucas was the reason this third story was important. Vexter said that 12 years ago, the Crystalline Empire and human space were at war. Not a large war, but a serious dispute over territory. There were 5 star systems that both species claimed. The Crystalline Empire had military advantage, but humans had numbers, and the territory was far from the empire's main centers. The war was not moving toward a clear victory for either side. The Crystalline Empire decided to send negotiators to try to end the conflict. These negotiators were military leaders. They believed that negotiations were just another form of warfare. They believed that they had to win every point and make humans give up the most. They believed that the goal was to extract maximum concessions from the human side. James Lucas was sent to negotiate for humanity. Lucas was different from other diplomats. He did not believe that negotiations were about winning. He believed that negotiations were about finding solutions that allowed both sides to live. Negotiations took place on a neutral station. The crystalline delegates and the human delegates sat across from each other in a conference room. James Lucas listened to the crystalline demands. The crystalline side wanted 3 of the 5 disputed systems. They wanted exclusive mining rights. They wanted human acknowledgement that the Crystalline Empire had superior claim to the region. James listened and took notes. He asked questions. He tried to understand what the Crystalline Empire really wanted. He discovered that the Crystalline Empire wanted the star systems because they contained rare minerals that were valuable for their technology. He discovered that they believed humans could not develop those minerals efficiently. Then James made a proposal that surprised everyone. He said that humans would withdraw from 3 of the 5 systems. He said that humans would grant mining rights to the Crystalline Empire. He said that humans would acknowledge that the Crystalline Empire had priority in the region. But he added one condition. The condition was this: if the Crystalline Empire would agree to never attack human space again, and would agree to share technology to help humans settle other star systems, then humans would accept this agreement. James said that he believed this arrangement would benefit both species in the long term. The crystalline delegates were puzzled. They were winning the negotiation. Why would they need technology sharing? They said that humans could develop their own technology. James Lucas said that humans wanted to move forward as partners, not as conquered territory. He said that humans believed that mutual benefit was stronger than military dominance. The crystalline delegates sent the proposal back to their leaders. The leaders considered it. They were suspicious. They believed that James Lucas was trying to trick them, but the proposal actually gave them what they wanted. They got the systems. They got the mining rights. They maintained their dominance. But they also got something unexpected. They got peace. The agreement was signed. Humans withdrew from 3 systems. The Crystalline Empire got the minerals it wanted. The humans accepted the decision. But then something important happened. James Lucas did something that Vexter found incomprehensible. David Curtis asked what Lucas did. Vexter said that James Lucas requested to speak to the Crystalline Commander alone. When the commander agreed, Lucas told him something that no negotiator should ever say. Lucas said that he had made this agreement thinking about children. The commander did not understand. Lucas explained. He said that in the 3 systems that humans were abandoning, there were human colonies with human families, with human children. Lucas said that those children had been born in those colonies. They had their homes there. They had their schools. They had their friends. Lucas said that he had agreed to withdraw humans from those systems because he did not want those children to grow up in a war. Zana Lucas said that winning a war would cost many lives, including the lives of many children. He said that this peace would cost humans some territory and some resources, but it would mean that children could grow up without fear of invasion, without fear of death, without fear of losing their parents. Lucas said that this trade was worth it because territory could be replaced, but children's lives could not. Vex said that the commander listened to this explanation and was very confused. The commander asked Lucas why he would make an agreement based on thoughts of children when he could have fought for better terms. Lucas said that he thought about his own daughter when he made the decision. He said that he imagined her growing up in a war zone. He said that he could not make that decision for other people's children. Vextar said that this was the moment that changed his perspective on human negotiation. He said that humans did not negotiate to win. They negotiated to create futures. The futures that they wanted their children to live in. Rebecca Turner had tears in her eyes. She asked if Lucas's daughter was safe. Lucas said yes. James Lucas's daughter was now grown. She had become a teacher. She taught children on a human colony that had been established after the peace agreement. She would never have been born or grown if James Lucas had chosen war over peace. David Curtis sat back in his chair. He said that this was the strangest form of warfare he had ever heard of. Vexter said that it was not warfare at all. He said that this was something humans called wisdom. He said that wisdom was the ability to see beyond the immediate victory, to see the long-term consequences of choice. Vexthar said that human military strategists always praise the commanders who won battles. But James Lucas had won something more valuable. He had won peace. He had changed history, not through superior force, but through understanding what his opponent really wanted and by making a choice based on compassion instead of conquest. Emma Whitfield asked if Vexter respected James Lucas. Vexter said yes. He said that he had learned to respect humans in a way he had never respected them before. He said that respect was a two-way thing. You had to see someone as having value and human choices, like James Lucas' choice showed a kind of value that transcended military or political categories. Vexter said that the Crystalline Empire had learned from James Lucas too. He said that in the 12 years since that agreement, the Crystalline Empire and human space had become trading partners. They had shared technology. They had learned from each other. No one had fought another war over those systems. David asked if this meant that the Galactic Council had underestimated human potential. Vexter said that the Galactic Council had underestimated human potential in many ways. They had seen humans as primitive creatures who could be conquered and controlled. But what they did not understand was that human primitiveness was actually flexibility. Human primitiveness meant that humans were not locked into old ways of thinking. They could imagine new solutions. They could make choices that surprised other species. Rebecca Turner said that she understood now what Vexter was saying. She said that human weakness was actually human strength. Because humans were weaker physically, they had to develop other abilities. They had to develop cleverness and compassion, and the ability to cooperate. They had to develop the ability to make hard choices based on values that went beyond survivals. Thar said that Rebecca Turner had understood correctly. He said that this was why the Galactic Council feared humans' fear. Was the most honest response because humans possess qualities that could not be defeated by superior force. They possess the ability to choose love over victory, to choose peace over dominance, to choose their children's futures over their own. Immediate gains. The gathering room had grown very quiet as Vexter finished his third story. The humans seemed to be processing everything they had heard about their own species, about qualities they possessed that they themselves might not have fully understood. Vexter stood and moved to the viewport again. He looked out at the darkness of space. Emma asked if Vexter had more stories to tell. Vexter said, yes. He said that his final story was not really a story at all. It was an explanation. It was a confession. It was the reason he had come to Station Meridian in the first place. David Curtis sat up straighter. He said that he wanted to know what Vexter meant. Vexter said that he would explain everything, but first he wanted the humans to know that everything he had told them tonight was true, but incomplete. He said that he had selected these specific stories for a specific reason. Vexter said that the Crystalline Empire had sent him to Station Meridian on a special mission. The mission was to determine whether humanity represented a threat to the stability of the Galactic Council and to galactic peace. The Crystalline Empire wanted to know if humans should be allowed to continue expanding their influence and their territory, or if they should be contained or controlled or limited somehow. David asked why the Empire would worry about this. He said that humans were less advanced than the Crystalline Empire in many ways. Vexter said that this was true. Humans did not have the same technology. The humans did not have the same military power, but the Crystalline Empire had observed something unusual about humans. Vexter said that every species in the known galaxy was driven by predictable motivations. They sought resources or territory, or power or survival. These motivations could be understood, and therefore could be predicted, and therefore could be controlled. But humans were different. Humans did not always act in their own self-interest. The Crystalline Empire had watched humans make seemingly illogical decisions. They had watched humans sacrifice themselves for strangers. They had watched humans choose principles over survival. They had watched humans build communities instead of empires. The Crystalline Empire did not understand this behavior. More than this, the Crystalline Empire was afraid of this behavior. Vexter explained that fear was the reason the Galactic Council had largely avoided direct conflict with humans. The Galactic Council was afraid because they could not predict what humans would do. They could not calculate human behavior the way they could calculate the behavior of other species. Vexter said that he had come to Station Meridian to study humans more closely. He said that the Crystalline Empire wanted to know if humans were truly unpredictable or if the unpredictability was an illusion. He said that the Crystalline Empire wanted him to determine if humans could be controlled. If necessary, Emma asked if Vexter had come to Station Meridian planning to cause trouble. Vexter said no. He said that his instructions were to observe and to report. He said that he was supposed to find evidence that would allow the Crystalline Empire to develop strategies to contain human expansion. Rebecca Turner asked what Vexter had found. Vexter was quiet for a long moment. His crystalline form seemed to absorb the light from the viewport, and his features became difficult to read. He said that he had found something different than what he expected. Vexter said that he had initially believed the stories of New Haven and Harmony Station and the negotiation with James Lucas were exceptions. He thought that they were unusual moments when humans had achieved something unexpected, but the more he studied, the more he observed, the more he talked with humans, the more he realized that these moments were not exceptions. These moments were examples. These moments showed something fundamental about human nature. Vexter that humans were not unpredictable. In random ways, humans were unpredictable in consistent ways. They consistently chose compassion over cruelty. They consistently chose protection over conquest. They consistently chose tomorrow over today. They consistently chose others over themselves. David asked if Vexter meant that humans were predictably altruistic. Vexter said yes. That was one way to describe it, but it was deeper than that. Vexter said that humans possessed what they called conscience. It was an internal sense of right and wrong that sometimes overrode survival instinct. It was an internal voice that told them when something was wrong, even if that thing benefited them. Vexter said that he had never encountered this in any other species. He said that other species had rules and laws because they feared punishment. They obeyed because disobedience had consequences. But humans seemed to have something internal. They seemed to believe that some things were wrong, not because they feared punishment, but because they believed they were genuinely wrong. Emma asked if this made humans less effective as warriors, or if it made them more effective. Vexter said that at first he thought it made them less effective. He thought that following conscience would make humans hesitate in battle, and hesitation meant death. But then he realized something else. He realized that conscience made humans more dangerous, not less dangerous. When humans fought, they fought with purpose. They fought to protect something, not to gain something. When humans fought, they did not need to worry about their soldiers turning on them, because human soldiers believed in what they fought for. When humans fought, they could inspire each other to do impossible things because they shared moral clarity. This moral clarity was a strength. Vextar said that humans without conscience would have conquered many star systems by now. They would have been ruthless. They would have been efficient. But humans with conscience had built alliances instead. They had built friendships. They had earned respect from other species. The humans would have far more power in the galaxy if they abandoned their principles. David asked what Vexter's conclusion was about the threat that humans represented. Vexter was silent. He looked at each human in the gathering room. He looked at Emma and David and Rebecca and all the others. Vexter said that according to his original instructions, he should recommend that the Crystalline Empire develop containment strategies for humanity. He said that he should recommend that humans be limited and controlled and prevented from expanding their influence. He said that this was what the Crystalline Empire expected to hear. But Vexter said that he could not make this recommendation. He said that after studying human warriors and human children and human diplomats and human communities, he had come to believe something different. He said that the Galactic Council was not threatened by humans. The Galactic Council should not fear humans. Instead, Vexter said that the Galactic Council should welcome humans. The galaxy should hope that humans would grow and expand and share their values with other species. Vexter said that if humans were given the opportunity to lead, they would not lead through conquest. They would lead through moral example. They would lead through compassion. They would lead by building bridges instead of barriers. Emma asked what the Crystalline Empire would do with Vexter's report. Vexter said that he did not know. The Empire might disagree with his conclusions. The Empire might believe that he had been compromised by human influence. The Empire might reject his findings. But Vexter said that he had to be honest. He said that he had studied humans and he had come to respect them. He said that he had learned that fear was the wrong response to humanity. The correct response was hope. Rebecca Turner asked if Vexter believed that humanity would achieve great things. Vexter said that he believed humanity would achieve things that could not be imagined. He said that humans were currently divided into many groups with many different interests. But if humanity ever became truly united, if humans ever worked together with the same purpose and passion that a 7-year-old boy felt when saving his colony, then humans would reshape the galaxy, not through warfare, but through their capacity for cooperation and compassion. David Curtis asked what would happen to Vexter if the Crystalline Empire rejected his report. Vexter said that it did not matter. He said that he had decided something important. He said that his life was long and he had served the Crystalline Empire for many years. but he believed that the future of the galaxy belonged to a species that could choose love over fear. He said that he wanted to be part of that future, even if it meant working against his own empire. Emma Whitfield reached out her hand to Vexter. Vexter looked at her hand for a moment and then extended his own crystalline hand. The human and the alien shook hands. There was no words needed because something important had happened in that moment. A bridge had been built. The gathering room slowly emptied as the humans left. Vexter remained at the viewport, looking out at the darkness and the two distant suns. One sun belonged to human space, and one sun belonged to the Crystalline Empire. But Vexter understood now that these divisions were temporary. The galaxy would not always be divided. This was the fear that the Crystalline Empire had sensed. This was why they had sent Vexter to study humans, because somewhere deep in their logic programming and their algorithms, the Crystalline Empire knew that if humans were ever truly free to be what they were meant to be, then the galaxy would never be the same again.